concerned parents. Oh, sorry. Just to let you guys know that the session is going to be recorded. So I'll start again. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to our very first Westbourne Parents' Voice workshop. This group was formed by concerned parents of Westbourne after the recent increase of knife crime. We are a group formed of different experiences and personal backgrounds, all with the one goal of giving our children the best possible future. This group is formed by parents for parents. Our group members are myself, Jameer and Bibi, Angel Samuels, Fahima Rahimi, Jeff Biggs, Harleen Chambers, Lizzie Fletcher, Anta Glover, Rahima Siddiqui, Sadia Mo, and Shuli Chowdhury, who I'll pass you on to now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shuli and I'm a Westbourne Community Champion. Welcome to our first Parents' Voice workshop. Today we will focus on youth crime, signs to look out for, and where you can get further information and support. We have speakers today with us. Emma, who is from Integrated Gangs and Exploitation Unit from the council, and her team is Becky and Abby. Can you please just turn your mobile phones off during the session, or if you can put it on silent for us. The toilets are at the back of the room and the fire exits are marked, and our meeting fire point is upstairs opposite the Stowe Centre at the bus stop. Now I'll pass you on to my colleague, Jamil.
Okay, so anyone who's joining us on Zoom, if you've got any questions, please put them down on the chat, and we've got our colleagues monitoring those who will be asking the questions during the question and answer session. I'll pass you on to Emma, who is from the Integrated Gangs and Exploitation Unit.
Thank you. I'll just fix the screen before I start talking. There we go, that wasn't too hard. So afternoon everyone, my name is Emma Murphy, and as Shuli said, I am a young person's advocate for females within Westminster's Integrated Gang and Exploitation Unit. This is Abby. I'm the School's Education Lead for Gangs Unit, but I was previously a gangs worker for the unit. I'm Becky and I'm the Community Engagement Officer for the unit. So I'll try and be as quick and as thorough as I can, because I'm sure everyone's got lots to be doing and it is getting warmer. So this is a little bit about the Integrated Gang and Exploitation Unit. We work with 10 to 25-year-olds within the borough. I just work with females. Abby used to be a gangs worker, so she mainly worked with the young males. We offer one-to-one guidance and support and mentor young people that get referred to us to try and give them more positive things to look for in life. So try and reduce them becoming involved in exploitation, serious youth violence, drugs, knife crime, etc. So we look for positive things, getting them back into education, trying to get them some training and employment, which obviously we've just been through lockdown and COVID. But thankfully jobs are starting to come up again, and we've managed to get quite a few young people over the past couple of weeks back into work. We safety plan and offer mediation, and we always try and better the mental health and emotional well-being, because some of the young people that we work with see so many traumatic things on a day-to-day basis in the areas they live. And sometimes when they go into school, so places that should be safe for them can sometimes be more risky. So we try and build up the self-esteem, resilience. We work with enforcement as well. So when something's happening within the community, we'll work with public protection and licensing to try and disrupt them activities. If, for example, there is someone who's causing a nuisance within the community, we look for things such as criminal behaviour orders to try and stop them from being allowed into certain parts of the borough as well. So we try and work as much as we can with communities. That's Becky's main role. So she's new in the job as well, but she knows the borough. She's worked in another service. So, you know, you live in the community, you see these like terrible things happening, you're worried about young people. So the best thing we can do is work with all you to raise your awareness and also get your feedback on, you know, how the borough can be improved and become safer. So our email address and phone number is there as well. Will the slides be getting shared?
Yes, so there's a form here.
Brilliant. And there's also booklets. So I think a booklet in English has been put on each chair, but there's some other booklets about how to talk to children about serious youth violence in different languages that are on the side, so you can always take them. So the overall aim is to increase your knowledge of exploitation, youth violence, missing episodes, signs and indicators to look out for, so that you can respond to risks more confidently. Break down some of them stereotypes as well, because I know with young females that I work with, they're often not looked at within society because the females, they're not looked as being risky, where if you've got a group of young males, you know, they'll be stopped and searched because they fit the stereotype of being involved in a gang, being involved in serious youth violence. But I know from my caseload that there are many young females that are also involved but get overlooked. And also we want to give you some helpful tips about what to look for, what to do if you're worried. So please get involved or wait till the end to ask questions. Respect diversity, we've all got different lived experiences, so just be quite mindful of that. I will share some case studies which will be confidential, so if they can be kept in this room, that would be great. Take time out if needed. It is quite a difficult subject for people to listen to. So if you're worried at the end, you know, you can come and speak to one of us. If you need to take time out throughout the session, please do so. So child exploitation. Child exploitation happens when someone gives a child who's under the age of 18 something that they want or need, and that's normally in return for something sexual and or criminal. So a young person can be a victim or at risk of child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation, and both as well together. It can happen face-to-face or online and doesn't have to involve physical contact. So I worked with a young female. She come from a stable family home. There was some domestic abuse. Mum was perpetrator against dad. This girl, she just went online and started speaking to someone who said he was a similar age. So over a couple of months, she thought that they were in an online relationship. She sent in decent images to him because he was asking. She didn't realise that, you know, she wasn't meant to do this. She didn't know. No one had ever told her. And from that, he then said he was a bit older. So he was sending her gifts as well in the post. So from there, when he said he was a bit older, she thought, no, this isn't for me. She pulled away from him, but he had put all her friends, all her family, the school she went to on social media. So he was saying to her, if you don't carry on sending me these pictures, I'm going to share them. So that was a real risk to her. She couldn't sleep because he'd keep her awake all night. Her grades really slipped in school. And then she did actually think about taking her own life. Thankfully, she rang Childline. They encouraged her to tell the police. Police done an investigation, but she said at that time it was the worst thing she could have done because everybody found out about these images. She felt dirty, she felt disgusted. She didn't see herself as a victim. And the police tracked this man down. So he was 62, he was married with 2 children and lived over 400 miles away. So from that example, I'm just trying to show you just how much control a perpetrator can have over a young person just online. So imagine what can happen face to face. Remember, this applies to both male and female as well. So when it comes to exploitation, there's often an imbalance of power. There's coercion, control, manipulation, blackmail, threats, tricks, deception. So if you think of young people who live in your area, if you think of your children, just think of what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. So if a gang or someone who's trying to exploit them or cause harm to them approaches them and says, do this for me, or this is going to happen to you, they're seeing that actually happen, so it's a real risk to them and a real threat. So sometimes when you speak to young people, especially as parents and carers, they might close down, they might not open up and tell you what's going on, but that could be a way of them trying to protect their friends and family as well. So if we think of wants and needs, anybody want to shout out what they think a young person might want or they might need as well on Zoom if you want to type in the chat? Or some of the things we have on
Money.
Yeah, money.
Designer trainers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mobile phones.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Pardon? Yeah. So it's things that you can hold, so like the trainers, the phone, the cash, alcohol, drugs, but then it's also things, attention, love, a friend. If someone's been bullied at school and feels isolated, you know, someone coming along and offering them just a smile or, you know, being accepted, that will draw them in, because as young people, and you know, we've all been there, you want to be accepted by your peers, you want to be involved. So perpetrators are aware of this. So for example, it can also be somewhere to stay, somewhere where there's not rules or boundaries that they've got to adhere to. So then as well, when we talk about groomers, we've got to remember that anybody can groom. Thankfully, not everybody is a groomer, anybody can. So it doesn't matter on someone's age, gender, ethnicity, background, culture, income or intelligence. It's the relationship that they build up with that young person, and they try and get themselves to be seen as really trusted and really friendly. So when we ask young people as well about who grooms, I know when we've been into schools, they'll say, oh, an older man, he's got a bald head, he hides in a bush in a park and wears a map. I was told that when I was in primary school, and that was a long time ago, but they don't realise it could be the friend, it could be someone younger than them, it could be older. It could be progress. Raising awareness of that. So these are some of the grooming models. I won't go into each one, but I've spoken about online already, where a young person is targeted online. We've got streets, so that tends to be anywhere public, takeaways, shops, bus stops, parks, hotels as well. And then we've got friends and peers. So sometimes young people don't realise they're being taking friends along to exploitative situations. So for example, if a party is being put on, maybe for the sole purpose of exploiting young people, they might realise, they might be encouraged to take friends along. They want to take the friends along to share the fun. They don't realise that there's some risk. So sometimes at parties, young people are told, you know, there's free alcohol, free drugs. What we try and get them to understand is nothing is ever for free when it comes to that. So at some point they might be asked to pay in money, either by doing something sexual or something criminal. And sometimes they feel, like we said before, under pressure to pay this back. So we've got inappropriate relationships. This used to be known as older boyfriends or older girlfriends, but as we know, young people can exploit someone a little bit older than them as well. So that's why we say inappropriate. We've got gangs and groups. We've also got county lines, which we'll go on to a little bit later on. And then we've got things like drug dealing, drug running, and then extremism as well that comes into it. So these are the stages of grooming. Sorry if I'm talking fast as well. I just know last time I held this session, I ran over, so I'm trying to fit everything in. So when it comes to the stages of grooming, there's 4 stages. So the first is the targeting stage. This is where the perpetrator is going to, you know, find somewhere where they're going to target young people. So, you know, if you think of the stages, the models, it can be online, it can be in person, it can be outside a specific shop or takeaway. So what they'll do, they'll try and get themselves seen as a really nice person. So it could be a couple of times you'd see a group, they might go past, they might smile, they might then, you know, make contact, like by saying hello to them. Remember, they're trying to make themselves seem really safe. They then might say to the young person, you know, give me your phone number. You don't want to be hanging around on the streets. It's really dangerous. You know, anyone can target you. Again, making themselves seem really nice. So then once that contact details have been exchanged, they might then introduce them to something that that young person thinks is positive, but isn't. So it's the experience stage. So you'll be given the wants and needs. They can feel wanted, test out the loyalty as well. So they might ask the young person to do something. They might say no, and then the perpetrator might turn around and say, you know, I thought we were friends. I really like you. I've been really kind to you. I've been protecting you. So why don't you just do this for me? So then the young person might feel obliged to do something. They might give them a weapon, give them sense of belonging, and then introduce them to a wider group as well. So then from there, it goes on to the hook stage. These are the more negative experiences. So things like getting them to commit low-level crimes, getting them to not respond to boundaries set at home, asking them to recruit others or bring their friends along, and engage them in activities such as drug taking, using alcohol, and asexual behaviours. So at this stage, the young person might feel really worried and concerned, and they might try and pull away. That's when it can often lead into the trap stage. So that's when the perpetrator will be making threats towards them, towards friends and family. We've even had young people whose pets have been threatened, because that's a way of keeping the young person involved in the exploitation. They might play on the young person's guilt, shame or fear. You know, if a young person, male or female, has shared indecent images or been recorded doing something sexual, would they want it shared around, shown to the friends and family? Don't think they would. They might try and isolate that young person from that supportive network, such as family. They might say to them, you know, you've got to do what I say, or this is going to happen. So that can often lead to young people going missing as well. Please jump in if you need to as well. So when we go on to gangs and associated trends, so one thing is really important: not all gangs are criminal. If you think of what it takes to be a gang, so 3 or more people, we're all classed as a gang today. We're not engaging in any criminal activity, which obviously makes us non-criminal. But the features of criminal gang are 3 or more people, they're in conflict with other groups or gangs, they engage in criminal activity and violence, they share an identifying structural feature, they claim control over territory. So if you think of the area where you live, there might be a gang operating because you know there's one down the road. Again, as you can tell, I'm not from this area, so I'm still trying to piece together where everywhere is. And there is an increasing number of girls joining gangs. So the girls I work with will say to me, yeah, I'll be with a group and someone will have a knife on them, but if the police come and stop and search us, I'll have the knife, I'll have the drugs, because the police are not looking at me. We had quite a high-level young person who's involved in serious youth violence and drugs be stopped by police. There was a girl with him. She didn't get stopped, but she is dealing drugs. She's been exploited to deal drugs and she's only 14. So she wasn't looked at by police. So this is something I'm working with closely to raise that awareness that, you know, young females are being used, and gangs know this as well. Gangs know that, you know, young females aren't going to be looked at. So
there is now actual girl gangs. So the whole group is operated by a female. In Croydon, they have quite a notorious gang in South London that's run by a woman, and it's an elder woman. It's a 38-year-old woman that is running an all-female gang. So you have to be aware. It's not just looking at your sons or your local lads. It's actually looking at your daughters and what they're doing as well, because they're getting more, because they're not looked at by the Metropolitan Police. That now it means that people are using the females. So the females, instead of being used, are now setting up their own gangs. And they are just as bad as the boys.
We've got at least one within Westminster where there's a female perpetrator, and she will target young males and young females. So what she'll offer them is love, protection. With the males, she might offer them a sexual relationship, and they think, you know, that she really likes them, she's there, like they won't say anything bad about her because she fulfills all their wants and needs. And they're fearful as well.
Most of the males that she targets have special education needs, so she's aware of their vulnerabilities, so she uses that for a close relationship with them. So she's really very, very clever, very clever. I think as well though, with gangs, we have to be really careful about the language we use. Not every young man is in a gang. I think we often get a lot of reports through to the inbox that say, oh, this gang of young people standing outside my estate, outside my door. And actually, there might be just a group of young people hanging out. They're not always gang members. For our criteria, a gang member has to be registered on the system with certain offences against their name. They might be involved in criminal activity, but there's a very big difference between what we would call a gang member and what might be perceived to be a gang member. So it's just about being mindful of your language and actually how you want your child to be talked about if they're in that situation. It's okay to definitely report stuff and to feel worried or scared if you see a group of guys. I would be worried if I saw a massive group of guys and walking by myself. But just to be mindful about the language we're using when talking in the community.
Prime example of this is in a West Wing. There's a group of a Moroccan group of boys that play football. It's a Moroccan football group that play football every week. And for weeks they're getting arrested, stopped and searched, and none of them have ever been in trouble. They're all AS students, they're all in university, college. So, but because they were a large group, they kept on getting arrested and stopped and searched and stuff like that. But actually, they've never been, none of them in that whole group have ever been involved in any criminal activity. But what was happening is the neighbours and residents were calling the police saying boys, but actually they was going to their football training and going home. But that's why we say be careful who you receive, because imagine your son was in that football club and he's just going to train with his friends to play football, and everyone's saying he's a gang member, So we have to be aware of what their involvement actually is, rather than being labelled as a gang member just because there is a group of friends.
Like quite a lot of people don't like the word gang, like when we go to schools and we say, oh, we offer gang and exploitation training, and they're like, oh, we haven't got a gang problem, and we're like, no, we're not saying you know, but they're all gangs, and it's just about raising awareness. But like if you think of a group instead of a gang, so gang tends to be, you know, have more negative connotations such as like drug dealing, criminality, violence. You know, as I said before, we're all today in a gang, but we're not engaging in anything negative. Well, I hope we're not. For now, anyway, you might get a little bit rowdy later. But there's different stages as well. So we've got the peer group. They tend to be, as Becky said, you know, the group of young people just hanging out together. They might be in a large group, but they're not a gang. Some of them might be engaging in like low-level social behaviour. And then you've got your wannabe group. So your wannabe group tend to be, you know, the group of young people who want to be involved in a gang. So not every young person either that commits a crime is being exploited. Some young people do choose to go down that path. But your wannabe group of them tend to be more vulnerable to exploitation. Then you've got your gang, which is your criminal gang. They're involved in drug dealing, serious youth violence, serious violence against others. And then you've got your organised criminal network or organised criminal group, so OCN or OCG, and they're the ones right at the top. They're controlling everything down. The ones at the bottom will probably never get to know who's right at the top, because like your wannabe group, they're probably the ones being stopped a lot more by police, getting like phones taken off them. So the ones at the top don't want their name being known to the younger ones in case it's passed to the police. But I always say, like, the ones right at the top, they're the ones like you see on the 10 o'clock news, being chased over rooftops by Interpol in Marbella. So they're the ones like living the high life. And then obviously you've got the ones at the bottom that, you know, are more vulnerable to being stopped by police, to being attacked by rival gangs as well, or suffering harm. So we've got knife crime. So knife crime is any crime that involves a knife. It can be someone who's carrying or trying to buy a knife for someone under 18, threatening people with a knife or something made, adapted or intended for causing threat or injury. But one thing that's quite interesting, so knife crime is not a gang issue. So this, I think this was 2019, we got this stat. It's a little bit outdated, but the Met Police study showed that only 11% of knife crime was linked to those involved in gangs or identified as gang members. So if you think of Westminster, you know, we have quite a lot of knife crime, but sometimes that tends to be people from other boroughs, because, you know, we've got the West End, you've got Oxford Street and stuff, so we do get a lot of foot traffic in a way from other boroughs. But sometimes young people think it's normal to carry a knife. They might see the peers do it, they might hear people talk about it, they might think, you know, a way to keep myself safe is to have a knife. that's not always the case. If someone's carrying a knife, they're more likely to use it because they've got a misplaced sense of protection. You know, they could get stabbed themselves, they could fall when they've got a knife on them and end up cutting themselves. But we do have knife amnesties that are run by the police, and also there's a knife bin. I think it's in the booklets where it is, but it's on Harrow Road. I think it's opposite the Queen's Park Library, 666 Harrow Road. So the knife bin is somewhere where, you know, people can take knives and just drop them off anonymously. There's no CCTV, there's no police around there. Any knife that's dropped off isn't fingerprinted for any like DNA and stuff. But the metal from the knives tend to go back in the community. So like building outdoor gyms, for example. So trying to turn something negative into something positive. So any questions, sorry, before I carry on, I know we're whizzing through this. Any questions?
So what we said before about the Moroccan football group that we were going, and they kept on getting arrested. So how would one differentiate between a violent gang or a criminal gang and just a normal group of people?
I think sometimes that's really difficult. It just depends on maybe what the community is seeing them do. So, for example, if they're using drugs, like so if they're smoking cannabis.
How we looked at that, we got boys with t-shirts that had their football club logo on it, so you could see clearly in the community when they were walking through as a group, that you could see clearly they were a football club. They had football t-shirts on, and they all wore the same training t-shirts. So they're small things, but you don't technically always know if they're a group or a gang. Sometimes by their personas and their behaviour, you normally can tell.
I think as well, if you're not used to this type of behaviour, like the young males I used to work with are very loud. They're very, very loud. And if I saw them behaving like that in the street and I didn't know them, it could be perceived as quite aggressive, like the behaviour they're showing. So it's about being really specific. If you feel uncomfortable or unsafe and you do want to report it in, then that you're well within your right to do so, but being specific about what they are actually doing. So if you think they're doing something, like if you think, oh, they're dealing drugs because I've seen cash exchange hands or I've seen something, make that very clear. It could be that it's a noise issue and it's antisocial behaviour, in which case state that. You don't have to say, oh, there's a group of guys who think they're a gang. You can say, actually, they're being quite loud, they're not harming anyone, but I'm just a bit worried because they're being a bit loud. It's about being very kind of the language you use when you're
Reach out to our community teams as well. I'm still getting my feet into Westbourne stuff because obviously I was based in RBKC for a long time. I knew all my young people, I knew all the youth workers, so a lot of the time it's being comfortable enough to walk into the youth club and go, do you know what, guys, what are you playing at? There's kids everywhere outside. And they appreciate that because they want to support you guys as much as you want the help. So it's being vocal. Look out for your community members, look out for your community workers. There is a lot of people around that don't know there's workers locally that can help. And it might be that your peace of mind is just a youth worker going, I've been down there, actually they're just a group of lads messing around. Or it might be actually there is something going on, and we then take that pressure of reporting it off of you, because we can then report it and say we're concerned that there's drug dealing going on the back of an estate or a housing block. But knowing your community members as well is really important. Local youth workers.
Yeah, you can email our inbox as well. Our inbox is monitored by the gangs workers in the union, and Becky has access to it as well. So if there's concerns, you think actually the same group are outside here every day, we can then think, okay, that's a hotspot, we'll go down and check it out. So yeah, we're aware. Yes.
Sometimes there's some people that are or they are scared to report. Yes. And there's also a lot of trust with the police. Definitely. Because it happens when parents have contacted the neighbors, have contacted the police. And for example, say there is a group, yes, a group of teenagers smoking drugs. The police never turned up, and there is a need of building this relationship with the parents and the police, because at the end of the day, even say it's really good what you're doing, I really do appreciate that if they were calling you, say if I was living in the Westbourne area and I was calling to say, because I don't want to call the police, I don't feel that I trust much. say, because it happens every
Yeah, that's fine.
So I would call you and say, okay, after this group of teenagers, this is a hot spot at school. What is it that we can do about it? I'm worried, as, you know, what would you do?
So that's, we have a very specialist team, we have 2 police officers within our team. So 2 specialist officers, they're there a lot of the time to receive information from us and help us work out what to do. So it might be, we contact and have a meeting with the local community members there. So parents, family members from there, actual youth workers themselves, so like Becky was saying, Becky could do a piece of community work there, and then we involve the police in that. So like, how many of you know who are like dedicated to all this stuff from the police? Does anyone know who they are? No. Well, that's important.
So actually, you have ward officers. Each area across Westminster has a specific person that is their point of contact within the police, which is not you ringing 999 and asking for help.
How would you get hold of information?
It's on the website.
So it's online, it's their email addresses are online. The problem with EWOs is their officers don't have specific phone numbers to prevent, you know, getting calls that should those other places. But it might be helpful to bring them in to meet with you guys. So you met them and you know them. So the point of ward officers is like street policing. It's like knowing your community, knowing the boys, knowing the girls, knowing the family. Like, I know a couple.
Just across the way, Andy, Sam is our ward officer. He knows all of the Amity staff team over there. He knows every one of the kids and he knows all their parents. Because he's taken the last year to learn who is who. Don't get me wrong, sometimes we think he's a bit harsh in the sense of the approach he takes, but there's a mutual respect between him and the young men. When he comes down, they're like, but they still do what they're meant to be doing because the relationship's being built. So again, it's really important if you guys can find out who your ward officer is, depending on where your location is find out who you will. They do engage, I mean, they do offer services like across the way at Amity Club. There was lots of antisocial behaviour going on outside, parents were stressed, family members were concerned. The police are actually running a cycling bike project over there. The police are delivering it to the kids. So gang members that were known as gang members are actually building and making cycling bikes with the Met Police. So there's ways of doing things and engaging with people to benefit kind of yourselves as well as them. But yeah, definitely find out who
We
your
can
officers are.
get you a copy of your so the contact details to share with the group. It might be bigger like this session. It's a really good relationship to have. Unfortunately, some organizations are absolutely amazing. It's all organizations, some are absolutely amazing, some need a lot of visa. But let's not tell everyone, it's all right now, I think it's good.
Because the Met have also got a youth engagement and diversionary team as well. So I don't know if they do anything in this end of the borough.
It's starting. It was meant to start just before COVID and emergency COVID came.
Yeah, because I know they do quite a bit in the south of the borough, because I think they were already established there before COVID. So it's things like a couple of months ago, we took a group of young people to the police dog kennels. So it was right out in the countryside. I got lost along the way, but we seen all like the little puppies that were getting trained, and yeah, it was really good for the young people because, you know, they often see, you know, police dogs and police as negative because they're getting stopped and they're seeing people getting chased by dogs and snipped down and all that, but they really, really enjoyed it. So it's taking them away from the area where they live that, you know, sometimes quite risky, and taking them somewhere else, and you just see a different side to these young people when they feel more free. Then we've got county lines. I don't know if anybody's heard of this before. I know it's been on the news and stuff, but your line tends to be these small phones, so you can buy them in like Asda for £10. This is the line that's used to run drugs to different parts of the UK. So it tends to be from inner cities to more coastal and rural areas. So we have many county lines running from Westminster to different parts of the country. We were talking about this the other day, saying just how many, there's hundreds of lines.
Cambridge, Southampton, Edinburgh,
Littlehampton, all over the shop. The
yeah,
whole
Brighton.
Yeah.
It's places where there are high number of drug users and not gangs in the same way they have London gangs. There's opportunities in London.
So what gangs will tend to do is, you know, sometimes they might put an advertisement out, and use that word quite loosely, on social media. So it might be Snapchat, it might be who wants to go and run to wherever, you know, you can get a couple of £100. For a young person who might see, you know, parents struggling to pay bills, they might want to, you know, keep up the trend with the peers. They'd say yeah, because what County Lines has made out to young people is something really fun and something that's quick, easy money. But what's not overshown to them is the risks. So if you think of a small coastal area, you know, when you've got 5 or 6 inner city gangs, they all want the same drug users, they want to make the most money as they can. They will fight other gangs, and you know, we've had some fatalities of young people being murdered. County Lines.
I had a young person who went down to County Lines and he was not unconscious by a rival gang member. He got a letter cut into his face and things such several times. So when I went, and he actually got taken to the hospital down there with his cardiac arrest in hospital. So when I went to get him, I could see where they tried to cut the letter into his face. It was really, really rigid.
But to that young person, when he was going County Lines, I mean, some young people are forced to do it. Some choose to go down because, as I say, we think it's, you know, quick money to be made. And I've had girls as well, so some in the 20s that have gone to coastal parts of the UK, but when they got there, they thought, you know, because of COVID, lockdown, there wasn't many people about, they decided to come back because it was too much of a risk being out in the public. Because, you know, sometimes gangs plan assaults and robbery and thefts on their own gang members. It can be rival gangs. Yeah, and it can also be being stopped by police and having, you know, this phone taken off you. So although them phones are cheap to buy, some of them can be worth thousands of pounds because of the information on the phone. But when you think of that, you know, could your sons or daughters, or could you afford to pay back, say, £1,000 debt? So sometimes that's how young people are kept in, and again, that threat and that blackmail, that coercion is involved in that. So we've got cuckooing. Cuckooing is where a gang or group will take over the property of someone who's vulnerable. So that could be someone who's got mental health needs, substance misuse, could be a single parent, could be a family on low income, you know, and that gang will maybe offer to give some money to that person, or they might threaten them and just take over the property, so they use it as like a drug base.
Yeah, it's quite shocking how many gang members' mums' homes are used as a cocoon nest. So what happens is, mum can't afford the latest trainers, mum can't afford the nice jackets that all the friends are going around with. Then informative gang member will go and befriend mum, and it will become like their mum's boyfriend. Oh babes, I'll get you this, oh babes, I'll get you that, and then they buy them a washing machine. Don't worry, if the TV broke down, they turn up with a 55-inch TV. Mum doesn't realise that actually they're being cocooned. The next thing you know is gang member turns up with £3,500 worth of cocaine in a brick and says, well, just store it for me in the cupboard because I've got you your washing machine and your TV the other day. Just do it for me for a couple of days. Next thing you know, they cocoon the house. Once you're cocooned, it's so hard to get out of that. A lot of the time, as Emma will agree, we have to actually move the whole family out of the house, because once you're cocooned, you're known to be cocooned, and that means that other gangs will try to do the same thing to you, and then you're trapped within a circle of violence.
And that's where we have an enforcement officer in our team, who's not a police officer, but looks at house closures, so property closures. And that might be necessary to be the only way of something that isn't happening there to keep them safe. So they'll also look at criminal behaviour laws on gang members or young people that are exposing young people and systemically involved in that. So we have, when we're here today, it seems a bit bigger than just us. We've got those different ways that we can tackle and social behaviour and crime.
No, we're not trying to scare you either. That's one thing, I should have said that at the start. So, yeah, I remembered halfway through, but I got there in the end. So what increases a child's vulnerability? So, you know, you've got young people who might go missing from home, care or school. You might go missing from school because they're being bullied, because they don't like school. Some young people just don't like education either and really struggle in that setting. You know, there might be an argument at home, the young person wants to go out, parent or carer says no, and the young person goes out anyway. So what's really important is that if a young person, if your son or daughter goes out, you don't know where they are, it's really unlike them to ring and report them missing to police on 101. And that even when they're over the age of 16, because what we find is that when a young person's over the age of 16, so 17, nearly 18, parents don't report them missing because they think, you know, the young adults, they can go out, but they're still at risk and they can still be exploited.
And one of the key things is the police will tell you that it has been 24 hours left. You ignore that bit because it's your child, they are missing, if you want to log it. That is really, really important. I forget parents tell me, oh, the police said it's not 24 hours. You want to report it now so that sooner the action can start happening, especially if your child is vulnerable. So that when you just be confident in yourself, I think a lot of parents will be nervous about doing it. I would be nervous about doing it. It can be that if you need a support, like a support staff member to call it in for you, we can call it on your behalf. If you know your child, etc., or with us, if you need that support there, it's so important that you do it. It's something that can sit right with you as a parent. That feeling, you know your kids. You know your kids are better than anyone else, right? So if something doesn't sit right, then you need to act on that.
You know, just because a young person's missing doesn't mean they're being exploited, but sometimes that does increase the risk. So, for example, you know, there are links between young people who go missing and county lines. Sometimes, you know, we've had young people missing for months and parents and carers haven't reported them as missing. It might be because, you know, that young person's behaviour at home really impacts on the family in a negative way, and to just get them out the house for a couple of days or a couple of hours, it just de-stresses the whole house, but it doesn't minimise any risk.
If a child is under 16, whether or not they're phoning you, unless you physically have seen them or you physically know they're at a family member's home and you know that they're there, they are still classed as missing. So when they ring and say, Mum, I'm staying at Ben's house, or Mum, I'm staying at Tom's house, unless you physically seen them within that period of time, they can still be classed as missing. Because a lot of it, when we was younger, our parents knew our friends' parents, and everyone knew each other within the community. So if I said I was at Ben's and I was at Tom's mum would only text my mum to let her know where I am. That doesn't happen no more. That community kind of link with parents is gone. So it's really important, unless you know Ben and you know Tom, make sure you have spoken to them. If they're saying I'm going to be home by 9 and you don't see them by later on that evening, make that call. Don't be afraid to challenge the system.
And then if you think as well, like we were saying before, sometimes with female perpetrators, you know, they could ring up and say, oh yeah, Ben's mum, we'll carry on with them.
Yeah.
And Ben's mum, when in fact, it might be someone who's exploiting them, it might be someone else who is involved, might be being exploited themselves.
That's what I do with my nephews. I FaceTime them and say, where are you? And they have to show me where they are. So if they're saying they're at Ben's house, and you can see it looks like a tip, and there's pans everywhere, and there's different stuff, you know they're not at a family member's home. So yeah, just call their bluff, say to them, just FaceTime people and let them say goodnight. And if they FaceTime you and you can see that there's somewhere they should be, make that call. You have a right as a parent. When your child is under 18, you have a right as a parent. Yeah.
And you know, it is hard because we've all been teenagers. Yeah, sorry.
The problem nowadays, sometimes when your child goes from other visitors friend, the parents will sit to give you their details.
Yeah, I know.
And that makes it difficult with your child to understand that age. If I don't get them, then you don't know there. And then the child is saying, oh, you don't trust me, you don't let me figure. The problem is that even parents, they don't want people to share their contact.
Yeah. But that's why I say FaceTime. Everyone uses WhatsApp. There's IMO, there's WhatsApp, there's so many different forms of FaceTiming. FaceTime them, call their bluff. Because if they don't want to FaceTime you, they're definitely somewhere they should be. You're asking them to say goodnight for 30 seconds. It just gives that 30 seconds will give you your comfort that they need to know that they're actually a friend's home. So I always say to parents, call their bluff, FaceTime.
You know what, that was going to link into what I was going to say, is that we've all been teenagers. We all know sometimes that maybe, you know, as we get that little bit older, we want our independence and we want our privacy. So sometimes it is just normal teenage behaviours that, you know, they might go to a friend and they don't want to share the details about where they're going because it might be frowned upon or they might be told no. So instead of being told no, they might tell a little white lie about where they're going.
Yeah, I think it's reinforcing the message as well that it's about your child's safety and that you love them and care for them more than anything, because it can become a really frustrating conversation to have over and over again. When your child is telling you, I don't want you to know where I'm going, or you don't trust me, all of that sort of stuff. It's difficult. And growing up now, I'm only just realising how much my parents have got to me. It takes a while, but it's like when you say, right, I love you, I care for you, that's it. I don't want to argue about it. I know it's frustrating. I know you feel like this. Acknowledge their feelings on it. There's no TikTok stories to have that conversation. There's no way to be like, yeah, mum, is everything? Let's go. They're teenagers or they're young people. But it's about you saying this is from a place of love and care, and over and over again. So even though they may not like the message you're giving them, they know this is coming from a good place, not an angry or I don't restrict you having fun. It's like that.
So then we've got things called push and pull factors. So your push factors are going to be something, sorry Emma, 10 more minutes. It's push factors are then things that's going to push the young person away from somewhere that should be safe, such as the family home. So we've got things like abuse, bullying, domestic abuse, parents are vulnerable, there's a family breakdown, absence of primary attachment figure, and emotional behavioural learning needs. And then you've got the pull factors that's going to pull them into more risky situations. So you've got things like being liked, fancied, given gifts, getting a buzz, being offered somewhere to stay. But if you think of yourself as a young person and even an adult, which side would you rather be on? Because I'd rather be on the pull. I'd rather be getting things that seem nice than going through such like bad things. So these are just some more additional vulnerabilities. So we've got like child poverty, you've got children who are looked after on in education, relationship breakdowns, aggressive behaviour. So these are just some of them as well. But the more things that are negative that a young person experiences when they're younger does increase the vulnerability to exploitation. And these are some of the consequences. So some of the long and short term impacts. So you've got, you know, being in fear, relationship breakdowns again, you could become a perpetrator, could become anxious, so mental health issues, post-traumatic stress. If you think of county lines, if you think of serious youth violence and exploitation, you know, the things our young people that are seeing are really traumatic for them. So they might, you know, have post-traumatic stress if those issues aren't dealt with. And they might blame themselves for things that they've seen as well. So what to look for and conversations to have. So, you know, sometimes the child or young person can be unaware that they're being exploited. They might just think it's a normal thing that happens. They might believe that they're in control in the situation and can leave at any time. If we think of the grooming process, that's what perpetrators might try and get the young person to think. They can sometimes require protection from rival gangs, and they might be attracted to making money fast. Sometimes if they have engaged in something sexual and or criminal, you know, they might be fearful of getting into trouble. That perpetrator might say, well, you've done this, I'm going to tell the police, and then watch what happens to you. You're going to be taken away from your family, you're going to go into care. So that is another way to play on emotional vulnerabilities. And sometimes it's difficult to get them to come forward because they're so fearful. But some of the things to do is be aware of the warning signs, build an open, honest relationship. So, you know, say to the young person, say to the child, as Abby said, I love you, I'm just trying to care for you. You know, set rules and boundaries, try and get positive activities to occupy free time. Get involved in child's education, encourage them to attend. If they don't like school, instead of saying, well, you know, you've got to go to school, it's really important, find out why they don't like it and listen. You know, teach them to set positive goals and prepare for a positive future. Praise them and encourage them, and get to know the child's friends and parents if you can, but that is more difficult as the child or young person gets older. And remember, the abuser might be trying to disrupt or damage your relationship with the child. So being there for your child is the most powerful tool you can have, just by being there, by, you know, if they disclose something to you or say if something happens to them or they get arrested, instead of shouting, as that's what we do because we care, you know, try and take a step back and take a breath and think, well, if they are being exploited, that perpetrator isn't going to shout at them. So it's just trying to sort of mirror that.
Also, some little ways when the girls like education, alternative stuff, football clubs after school, tennis club, chess club. There's other things like young people, not everyone is a theoretical learner. So find practical things, get them involved in it. Don't give them time to be on the roads, basically. There is so many free availability activities in the community. Is making sure that you engage them from young, so that's all they know. They don't want to hang around in the streets, even as they get older. The children that are engaged with activities from young are less likely to join the roads.
So these are just some of the signs and indicators to look for as well. So sexual health and different behaviours, you know, have they gone from being like really positive to more negative behaviours, and then sometimes it's the other way around as well. So behaviours being negative, sometimes perpetrators can say, you know, just go home, go to school, adhere to boundaries, because if you don't, then, you know, the fun's going to be over for all of us. Are they going missing from school, home care? Are there any problems at home? What's the physical conditions like? Sometimes there's often bruising that might be undisclosed. Are they hanging around people who are older, involved in crime? Is there new friends you don't know about? What's the use of technology like? Have they got more than one phone? Is there any bullying? Are they using substances? Have they got any gifts, any money? Are they, you know, talking about places, and you think, how do they know these places? Like, we've never been there. And distrusting authority figures as well. And then what to do. So stay calm, listen, understand why, seek a solution together, and seek help from local support networks. So this is really important. The listening and the staying calm is what that young person will need, because, you know, that exploitation, that groomer might be, you know, really threatening them, blackmailing, and they just want to talk to someone. They don't want to be shouted at if they disclose something. You know, it might be really difficult for you as parents if your child discloses something, but there's so many support networks. So I know in the booklets that you've got, there's lots of support networks at the back. I've got an online link as well. I think I've sent it over in the past that can be shared with people on Zoom. And then there's just, this is how to make a referral to us. So you can email us, you can ring us, and then get some advice. And then we do take referrals as well from parents and carers and young people. So it's not just professionals. When we get a referral, the case is screened and then allocated to either myself, if the young person's female, or flexible gang worker, if the young person's male. And then we work with the young person to undertake an assessment and develop a plan of things that they want to work on. So it's very young person focused. And this is just how to report on Instagram, Snapchat. So see the 3 little dots, that's what you look for when you want to report something, and then it'll come up with a list of options, so as to why you want to report it. And then these are some good books for younger children. I think you'll probably be able to get them on the library or on Amazon. So Chicken Clicking is my favourite. It's really good. I've used this with like nursery school children as well. Yeah, it's just about how to teach them to be safe online. You know, online is good, but sometimes they might stumble across things. And then it's just some more support services. So Crime Stoppers is a really good resource or support service. So like we were talking before, if you don't want to ring the police, you can always ring Crime Stoppers. It's 100% anonymous. And just report things that are going on in your area, and that will go to your local police team as well. And then there's just a couple more. So there's some about online safety. And that's it. Any questions? Yeah.
You know, you said earlier about carrying a knife is more dangerous than not carrying it. I have teenage family friends, and they say that they feel that not carrying a knife means that they're more vulnerable. They don't have to use it, but at least they feel safer if they have it on them. What would you say?
So that's what I was saying with the misplaced sense of protection. So that's something, you know, that young people might just think, and they might actually know the risks. But
90% of stabbings that happen, the young person is stabbed by their own knife. That's how you put it. It's fact. 90% of stabbings that happen, the person that ends up injured or dead is stabbed with their own weapon. They drop it in the scuffle, it falls out of their trousers when they're running. 90% of young people that are stabbed or injured end up stabbed or injured using their own knife.
Again, like I said, that misplaced sense of protection. So I think Muskan, I don't know if you met Muskan in the past, she was Becky's predecessor. She used to say it's like going into a deep dark forest because you've got a flashlight. Would you go into a forest just because you've got a flashlight? So it's similar, like, why do you carry a knife? Because you feel safer, but really it's not as safe as you think. Yeah.
Hi, Emma. I have a problem right now. I have a boy who's in year 6. I just came from the school for a time, and I think they did not eat and I'm working with the family, and it's really concerning me on this side about the family. The dad doesn't speak the language, and I'm trying to talk with the council. I'm getting to the school, and they're going to refer them to social service. I'm going to open them. They are really concerned about the doesn't speak the language. Yes, Arabic. And this is my concern, and I don't know what to do really, because I can see that ball, and he plays football. It's really good. I went to the football. I sports with them. But they think he doesn't talk anything like that. The only the school, they see all these problems. So what do we do?
What school is he at by any chance?
Smith.
So if you,
He's in year 6, so is he going into high school?
He's going in year 6, he's going this year.
yeah, so my old employer is Futuremen, who's very well known locally. If you contact them, they have a boys development team that can help him with the transition between primary and secondary. They can also work on other stuff. So it's just www.futuremen.org. Futuremen is one word.
Yeah, what people, but the thing is, I don't know if they're gonna get it, because the problem is hiding deeper down. I see.
Yeah. But with Futuremen, we work on a one-to-one caseload. It's specialized workers working with a one-to-one caseload.
Right, because I need the dad to involve. I talked to them, they said they can't because they don't speak English, and the guy there speaks Arabic, so I don't understand, because if they speak with the dad to help me, because really that what I see him where he's going, I see, I saw a lot of children, I told them there, and what they're doing, and they're now where they are.
Yeah.
I told them, and I see this child, which is really breaking heart, because he doesn't small, nothing. But you can see all the fight, all the language, and the way he speaks. So I don't really.
Think it might be best to either contact Futuremen again, or I'm just trying to think would make referrals to our team.
I don't know why nothing happened. I'm not sure what is the thing, because I don't know. They have concern about me.
Yeah.
They already.
Do you work with these older
Yeah, I
ones as
did.
well?
I did.
I know who you are now,
Yeah, I'm working with them at the moment, but it's really, I mean.
I know it's young person.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can catch up
Yeah,
about it
yeah.
afterwards.
So I got a question about, would you say it was cuckooing?
Yeah.
Okay, so if a person is in that situation, what can they do? And would there be any criminal charges or any kind of consequences for them unwillingly or unbeknownst to them, like being in that situation? How can they get out, and would there be any consequences?
That's really hard to answer because it's actually done as a criminal. There's about, I think it's 48 different charges that can be brought to a situation in that criminal situation, but it's done on a case-by-case basis by the police and the court. Everything's done on a case, because if the person is genuinely being exploited, the person that's exploited can be done for modern day slavery, There's so many different types of angles they can come from, but I think if they're reaching out, that there'll be a lot more of a lenience towards it. But it's what's happening is the vulnerable people know what's going on. They've been exploited, they know what's going on, and they don't speak out. When they get arrested or the house gets raided, then they say, oh, I'm being forced to do it. So at the moment, there's a lot going on for that. And there is actually lots of legal stuff going on behind with the police and stuff like that, about stuff like that.
Yeah, the BBC done a documentary about county lines, and they were in a coastal area and they were following someone who was being cuckooed. So what the police would do, they'd go to that property and say a notice on the victim, but that helped the victim because when the gangs were coming to the house, they were saying, you know, I've got this piece of paper, like the police are going to keep coming back. So that was a way of disrupting it. But I think if anyone is worried that they're being cuckooed, as Becky said, if they come forward to police sooner rather than later, they'll get a lot more support. And then from that, you know, police will liaise with like social care, if there's any children or like the vulnerable adults. It might help with housing as well to get them moved somewhere safer. Yeah.
I just want to say something because of the fear and so on. I came across a neighbor a while ago, a few years down the line, and I was moving the building, and she said to me she had a refrigerator, and we don't want for about 2 years where the smell of the drop and things are constant. People have like, I was myself, believe me, that I was smoking it. And she was terrified for all these years, because at least she got up to say a little. So when I said, this must be this guy, I said, what do you see? She said, Sadia, I see people coming. I said, he must be a dealer, he must be selling it. He must be. So it took me a whole week, is not joke, to go for that lady and to tell her nothing is going to happen to her. I called SMT, told them not to come with the uniform because she's terrified. And at the end of the day, 2 weeks later, a whole van came at 7 in the morning, caught the guy, plenty of drugs inside, and what they did, they moved the woman to another area facility in another. But just to tell you, all these years she suffered, few years down the line, with a daughter of 11 years old, sleeping with the smell of drugs, and terrified to do that. Now that's what I think what the parents did today, organizing this, is, I think for me, it's very important for the information parents take. So that their own children, we people who are not saying their children are in the ground or whatever, but it's very important that the parents are aware of what is presented today, so they can share it, and the kids, they know the parents are aware of all things. And that is a start.
Yeah, and that's about like a powerful tool as well. You know, parents being aware of what's going on. Because I think sometimes young people, and now I probably thought it as I was growing up, and I probably thought, oh, my parents don't know what's going on with me and my friends. So just being aware of, you know, what is going on in the communities.
So obviously I was going to work before, and the family networks I got to know is what really helped me in the job, is being able to have a parent say to another parent, oh, come see family, and I get to know that family, and you start building in each area you work in, a community where actually, if one boy's doing this, I know that the other boys mum has told me that, and you can start information sharing more and more. I think that's what a lot of the aim of these presentations, us coming in, so you have face as well, and you have contact, because it's so important. That's why we've got a new community engagement officer, because we need those relationships with the community, so we can educate, we can spread those messages, we can support you guys. It's really, really important.
What is these things are not publicized or people don't know about it, and you know, there needs to be more advertising. Parents don't know that there's this stuff out there. If it wasn't for you know, the sort of organizers like today, people would come in, and I'm sure all my neighbors will know about these programs or things like that. So I believe it needs to be more. I don't know, the council needs to do something about getting parents aware of these services, because lots of parents are scared.
Yeah.
They don't know where to go or what to do, and most of them are, you know, bullied or
you know, they don't know what's going to happen to them if they go through the year, things like that.
Definitely. I think the problem we have a lot is that the work with the director, with quite high level kids, quite high level groundwork. So these really important bits before the kids even get to that stage, there's not enough capacity for us to do all the work we want to do. Exactly, there's not enough resources there. So we can be honest with you and say, yeah, we'll come out and do this, but actually, we don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. Like, we'd like to do this all the time. That's the honest truth of it, to raise that awareness. I think us as educating different staff members so they can come out and do this work as well. So that's what we are trying to do more. I know it's not an answer to the problem, but we are trying to do.
Because we've been going into schools as well, so obviously because of lockdown, we weren't able to go in and do group work with our young people, but Abby and I went into St Stephen's Primary a couple of weeks ago, so that was really good because we've done some really intense work at Year 5 and Year 6. Yeah, and then we can offer things like parents' evening when it goes back to face by face. I know Becky's gonna.
Yeah, Becky will give some community mornings. And just so you know, so I took over as this unusual, but the schools one, so we have a gangs worker, is a link worker for each of the secondary schools in Westminster. So each secondary school has their own gangs worker in terms of if there's an issue in that school, our gangs worker should know about it. In September, that will become much more apparent because we're building the work back up. I'm in contact with most of the primary schools in the area, and I obviously oversee the secondary schools as well. So we going into all the secondary schools doing sessions like this with the kids as well. And when I'm with the kids, I tell them we literally started to parents, I said, we spoke to your sister the other day, just so they know we're delivering this all around. But the schools are really on board with it.
And when we're with Year 5 and 6, we talk a lot about crimes, like the low-level ones that they might be asked to do first when they're in the process of being exploited, and also about knife crime and gun crime. So Abby has a little Nerf gun, I have a pencil that represents the knife, and we say to the young people, we're safe to stab us. So someone tried to shoot Abby in the heart, which obviously isn't very safe.
I said, shoot me when you don't think we'll kill you, she shot me in the heart. She was really going for it.
So from that, we're teaching young people that there is nowhere safe to stab someone or shoot someone, because even if they don't die off that, like, off instantly, you know, they could get infections.
It's knowing that as a contact, exactly. It's knowing that as a contact. When they say, oh, if I stab them in my arm, well, okay, so if you stab them in my arm, they get your cut, but then it gets infected, you get septicemia. Or, oh, I cut someone here, but then they fell, they hit their head and back, all of it passed away because they got themselves off. So it's as parents, it's knowing, it's curious, they have questions, they have an answer to absolutely everything. It's about asking you, and some of those answers secret to them, because they push all the boundaries, but all the boys I work with, and I have like boys from age 11 to age 25. They have answers to absolutely everything.
My one question would be, I know you're doing a lot of work with schools and young people, but I think it needs to be, us parents need to be taught, and we need coaching, and because we're the ones that see our children in different forms.
Yeah.
And if we can notice things, or who are taught how to spot things, I think it would help the society much. And how can you do that?
Because that's what we were saying. So when like parents' evenings start again in school, like you'll try and go there. Becky's going to do coffee mornings for parents throughout the borough as well. So anything.
Where do you find out that information? How do you know that when you're doing this?
I'm going to be getting the information out to everyone soon. I've literally been in post 2 weeks. So I'm literally building the packages and workshops now. So the next few weeks is just me getting everything together, because I don't want to do stuff half-hearted, be able to come in and do proper workshops. So as soon as I've obviously Emma will pass over the details of the contact here, and hopefully we can run another session here.
So is there like a dedicated website that you have where all your information is there, like everything that say the champions do go on our social media? So do you have a site like that? Or
we have a
where is it? Where would you find that information?
I don't know if it's in the handbooks at the back. I'm not sure how up to date our website is, to be honest.
We have a section on the council's website, but to be honest with you, it doesn't have this information on it.
This is brand new, this is literally just been brought in, so our side of the community stuff is literally a brand new kind of way of working. Where you had gang members, specific gang workers before, this is a whole new, this is us reaching out, and we're not directly working with one-to-one caseload kids now, where that it's now about the community, so it's going to come together in the next few weeks where we start putting out dates. Abby's going to be going into the schools and doing workshops for the young people. I'm going to be coming out in the community and doing workshops. So we're just literally working on building on the workshop packages for families and parents and stuff.
But like Abby said before, you know, one of the things that works for us, like when we're doing one-to-one work with young people, is that a family might say to another family, oh, you know, I was similar or I needed some similar support, contact this person. So, you know, the email address for our team is in their booklets. Feel free to, you know, tell your neighbours, tell relatives, tell friends about the service we offer, and if they need support, they'll probably feel more sort of, what's the word, confident.
I think as well, it's us helping you to find other organisations that offer the low level support. To kind of have those links, because we like I said, we're just one team, and the stuff we're dealing with at the moment is murders and really, intense level things. So I think it's about showing, like, definitely we putting together a directory of all the resources available in Westminster. So because it's needed, isn't it? Everything needs to be in one place to access. So that's what we're trying to do.
We're actually mapping a map at the moment to have all the schools, all youth hubs, organisations. It's going to take at least 3 months because there's so many that people don't know about. So we're literally going to build, and we're hoping to make it interactive where you go on the website and you'll be able to see and you'll be able to click and know what each service does.
And we are here to be challenged at the end of the day. We are here for your honest feedback and your honest answers. If you don't feel supported, you don't feel supported. So you don't have to be all smart and, oh yeah, everything's all great, thank you so much. We want to take it honestly and actually genuinely improve.
We've got loads of ideas through our experience. I've been doing this 21 years. I've worked with gang members right across London. So we're bringing new ways of working into the borough. It's just going to take us a few months to kind of find our feet and get these things into place. But we've already built 3 package workshops. So we're just getting everything together so that we can start rolling them out to the communities.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma, Becky, and Abigail. Thank you so much. I could listen to you guys all day without getting bored. You guys are a fountain of information, and as a parent, I wish I could just absorb everything from you guys. You know, all the information you provided is so valuable, so valuable. I wish that we could just spread it into the community and we'll be better armed with knowledge. Is there anything else
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much for everyone for coming, and thank you, Emma, and your team.
Yeah, we did have another a speaker who was going to come from Future Men, but because of the rain yesterday, he's dealing with a flood, so he's not able to come. Sadia from the Westbourne Forum would like to say a few words about what they are doing, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you. Sadia?
Hi, so my name is Sadia and I'm community development worker for the Neighborhood Forum. And, oh, sorry, thank you. And for the Church Street Ward Neighborhood Forum. So first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming. We are part of the steering group for the Community Safety Parents' Voices. And we are very proud of the parents that actually came forward and are doing something now to help the community. And we hope to see more and more parents getting involved as well. And thank you to the whole team, the most experienced one in the fields, and to share all this information. And I always thought I myself worked for community safety in Islington. So I know what it is. I worked with the youth, and I can assure you that some parents were not aware at all of their kids being in a gang. Okay, so I've seen it myself. I worked in there. So I'm sure now today the information given is very useful to everyone. So what's the neighborhood forum? I just put a little note. So Westbourne Neighborhood Forum is at the heart of the local community. And we endeavor to be both a voice and a source of strength for residents and local organization. I've left a little card on your chairs, which give you the Westbourne Forum website. It's very important because all the local activities, most of them, you'll find them there, because we always make sure as we go, we put them on the website. So it's really good to get into the website to get more also other information. And also, we have also a questionnaire, which we have on the website, is to find out what are the needs of the community in a sense, in general, for future development or future anything that we can help with. So it's important that, you know, you could complete that. It will be very, very helpful. So otherwise, sorry, I put a note because my head is all, it is vital, I think, coming back to knife crime, that we take that seriously as community, because it's a community that can lead that to prevent, in a sense, if we all together in it. And I feel like today I'm very proud to see that, and to see again more in the near future. And I'm not going to stay too long. So I'll ask you, those present, to encourage your neighbors, your friends, let them know about it. And this is how we can all work together. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
So thank you, Sadia. So all those who are present and have come to the session today, on your chairs, there will be a feedback form. If you could please fill those in for us. And I'd like to say to Emma, Becky, and Abigail, if you find any parents who are interested in joining the Parents' Voice and spreading the message out to other parents, concerned parents, they are very welcome to join us. And this recording is going to be put on the Westbourne Forum. So if those who couldn't attend today would like to get the information, you can always direct them to the Westbourne Forum, and they'll find the video on there. Again, thank you again, Emma, Abigail, and Becky, for coming. You guys have been, the information, me as a parent, I can only speak for myself, it's been amazing, and I wish I could keep you guys in my pocket. So if anytime I needed anything, I could just, just get you guys. But yes, I hope we can do more sessions with you guys and spread the word. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just say thank you as well so much to Jamila and Julie and Mahila and Nima for organising this workshop. They've done such a good job, and they really have organised the whole thing on their own. So give them a really big round of applause. Parents' Voices with the other group is working with Angel and Sarah Kelly, and working on do some outreach to local schools. So they're going to be trying to connect with parents through schools. So that'll be more of that.